In today's tutorial, we will learn how to add custom 3D models, UI, and create logic by playing animation on a button press in our WebXR experience. Alright, so we're starting off in the project that we created in the last video. And the first thing that we want to do for this tutorial is actually search for a 3D model. So we want to go to sketchfab.com, click here in the search bar and enter dinosaur. And so we want to have a cool dinosaur model. You can of course take whatever you want. And we want to here click on downloadable and animated. And while searching for the models, let's make sure that we choose one which doesn't have this little $sign in the top right corner, like this one, for example, because these models are free and not paid. And here we can already see below that this model actually does have different kinds of animations, which is pretty nice. So we also, of course, want to have a model that is animated. And while downloading, it's very important to take a look here on the size of the 3D model. So GLB, for example, this one has 4 megabytes, which is quite nice as well. So I also found another model here, which I personally found even cooler, this Triceratops skeleton. And this one also has animations attached to it. And then we want to click here on download 3D model, select the GLB file. And this one is a little larger, which is not too bad for our prototype here. But generally the rule is as smaller of a file size as possible. So back in our editor here, let's go to the public folder and open the GLTF folder. And this is where all our files are stored, as we learned last tutorial. And we want to create a new folder which we call dinosaur, and then drag in our dinosaur GLB model here into the folder. And here we have it. And let's actually go ahead and rename this one. So do right click and say rename, and we want to call this simply animated_dinosaur. So it's easier simply to import it later on in terms of writing it down. So then let's go back to the index.ts in our source folder. And because this is where the IWSDK lives, and in the asset manifest, we add a new entry called dino, and the URL points here to the GLTF folder, dinosaur, and then animated dinosaur.glb. So let's add that into the URL file like this. So dinosaur, not GLTF, but actually .glb. And then we want to also specify the type, which is asset type.gltf, and we set the priority here to critical. And this is how we actually import any kinds of assets into the IWSDK. So all the 3D objects, all the sounds and everything else we would import here. So then next up, let's actually go ahead and delete all of this code here because we are not needing it. This is actually what a bare scene looks like, simply with the features imported and all of that, and the rest we don't need anymore. And so let's make sure that our app is still running. And in order to do that, let's actually go ahead and first of all make sure that we're in the correct folder by entering ls-a. And by the way, if you should be in this parent folder here that we can go into with entering cd ... we can simply go ahead and enter cd and then the first few letters of our project folder, hit the tab button, hit enter, and then we're in the correct folder. And now we can simply enter npm rundev, and a new window should pop up with our XR application that we can run in the simulator with no 3D objects whatsoever. And that's exactly what we want to get started. Alright, so before we move on, let's close up some of these folders and make everything a bit more neat and tidy. So let's create a new file that we want to call dino.ts, and this will contain the component, the entity creation function, and the system for the dinosaur. So the first thing we want to create is the dino component, which we want to do by typing export const dino component equals create component. And in an ECS, the component is data we attach to an entity. The entity is the thing in the world, and the component describes something about that thing. Let's name this one dino and set it in quotation marks. It will be used to store information about the animation of the dinosaur. For this component, we will add 3 fields. And the first one is the request animation index. This tells the dino system which animation clip we want to play. So let's open some curly brackets here and set a type, which we're going to set to types.int32. So we're going to specify that. The default is -1, which means no animation is requested. The second one we want to call animation request ID. And this is a small but important detail. If we only stored the animation index, clicking the same button twice would write the same value twice, and the system couldn't easily tell that, for example, a new click happened. By incrementing a request ID on each button click, every click becomes a new request, and we also don't play the same animation twice without ever having a new click. The third field is animation clips. This stores the animation clips that come from the GLB file. For this tutorial, we will use types.object because animation clips are complex JavaScript objects. In performance-critical component data, you normally want to specify type fields, but for this use case, it's fine. And we want to set the animation clips to an empty array, which we later on use to store all the animation for our 3D object. Now then we can see that we have some red squiggly lines here, which means that we simply missed importing some stuff, which we're going to do right now by writing import, open up our curly brackets, and we want to import from, and then we want to put our add IWSDK/core, and we want to start by importing, of course, our create component here and our types, which we can already do by using the tab. And here we're missing a comma, it seems. And as we are already importing stuff, let's import the animation action, animation clip, the AnimationMixer, also our AssetManager for a bit later on. And we also want to import the create system here. And then we also want to import the loop ones, and we want to import our world. And this will help us because these are all the things that we need to import for the rest of our scripts. And that means no red lines anymore unless we do a different mistake. Next, we create a function called createDinoEntity. And this function takes the world as an argument because entity creation belongs to the IWSDK world. Inside the function, we call AssetManager.getGLTF and put dino in quotation marks. The string dino must match the key that we added to the asset manifest in our index.ts earlier on. If the GLTF is missing, we throw an error. And then we create the actual entity with world.createTransformEntity, and in our brackets here we want to put the gltf.scene, and then we want to pass in a object which we put into curly brackets, and here we want to set the parent to the world.scene entity. And this is an IWSDK way to add a 3JS object to the world. We do not call scene.add directly because that would bypass the ECS side of the framework. And createTransformEntity creates an ECS entity, binds it to an object 3D, and gives it transform data and parents it correctly. After that, we set the position and scale of the dinosaur. In this case, we place it in front of the camera and scale it down a bit so it fits into the scene. Finally, we attach the dino component to the entity and pass in gltf.animations as the animation clips. This gives the system access to the animation data. Now we can create the system. We expose a class called DinoSystem and extend createSystem. The first part of the system is the query definition. We create a query called dino and it requires dino component. That means the query gives us all entities that currently have this component. For this tutorial, we only have one dinosaur, but using a query is still the right ECS pattern. Inside the class, we declare a few private fields. An AnimationMixer, the clips, the actions, and last request ID, and the current active action. In init, we subscribe to the dino query with the qualify event. This callback runs whenever an entity newly starts matching the query. So if we add another dinosaur later at runtime, this would run again for that new dinosaur. When the dino entity qualifies, we create a new AnimationMixer for its object 3D. The mixer is the 3JS object that actually advances and blends animation time for that model. Then we read the animation clip from the dino component and convert each clip into an animation action by calling this.mixer.clipAnimation, and in the brackets we want to put clip. For each action, we set the loop mode to loop once. because we only want a button click to play the animation one time. We also set clamp when finished to true, which means the animation holds its final pose when it reaches the end. Let's also log the animation names to the console like that. This is very powerful because the indices depend on the GLB file. Remember that the first animation index is 0, the second animation index is 1, and so on. Next comes the update method. Update runs every frame, similar to an update method in Unity. We use it here because the animation mixer needs to be advanced every frame. First, we check whether the mixer exists yet. If it doesn't, we return early. Then we get the first dino entity from the query. Since this tutorial only uses one dinosaur, that is good enough. If we later wanted multiple dinosaurs, we would store mixer and action state per entity instead. Now we read the current animation request ID from the component. If this is different from last request ID, that means the UI has made a new animation request. When a new request exists, we update last request ID, read the requested animation index, and use that index to find the matching action in the actions array. If there's no action for that index, we log a warning. This usually means that the button is pointing to an animation number that doesn't exist in this model. If the action exists, we call reset and play. Finally, outside of that request check, we call this.mixer.update and put delta inside of the brackets. This is what actually advances the animation over time. Without this line, the animation would be started, but the model wouldn't animate. Now we are ready to create the UI. Inside the UI folder, we can create a new file called AnimationButton.UIKITML. In this file, we add a small UI with 3 buttons: rise, raw, and fall. Each button gets an ID, because in our TypeScript system, we will use those IDs to find the button elements and attach click listeners. We also add some basic styling. The panel root is a flex container arranged as a column. The buttons get a background color, padding, margin, and rounded corners. This is very similar to writing HTML and CSS. The important IWSDK detail here is the UIKITML. This is the source file. This gets compiled into a JSON file under public/UI. So later on, our runtime code will point to UI/animationButton.json, not directly to the UIKITML file. Next, we create another file in source called CustomUIPanel.ts. This file will be responsible for creating the panel entity and connecting button clicks to the dino component. At the top, we import createSystem, EQ, panel document, panel UI, Ray interactable, screen space, and world from the IWSDK/core. We also import dino component because this UI system needs to write an animation request onto the dino entity. First, we create the function createCustomPanelEntity. Inside it, we call world.createTransformEntity and put in undefined as well as the scene entity as a parent. Here, passing undefined is intentional. We're not passing in a custom mesh or a model. We only need an ECS entity with a transform, and then the panel UI component will create the panel content. Then we set the panel position and scale. We place it a little above and in front of the viewer. After that, we add the panel UI component and set its config to UI/animationButton.json. This points to the compiled UI file. We also add the screen space component. This helps position the UI nicely in browser mode. Finally, we add Ray interactable. This is important because it allows Ray-based interactions with the panel, so the buttons can be selected in XR. Now we create the custom UI panel system. This system has 2 queries. The first query is animation panel. It requires panel UI and panel document, and it uses EQ to only match a panel whose config is equal to UI/animationButton.json. That filter is not strictly necessary in our tiny project, but it's a good habit. In a larger project, you might have many panels and you do not want the system to attach listeners to the wrong UI. The second query is dino, which simply requires dino component. And in it, we subscribe to the animation panel query. This waits until the panel exists and a panel document has been created. Once the panel qualifies, we can retrieve our document from paneldocument.data.document and put the entity index in brackets. Then we use getElementById to find the rise, raw and fall buttons. For each button, we add a click listener. The click listener logs which button was pressed and then calls this.requestDinoAnimation with the animation index we want. The exact animation index depends on your GLB file. A good way to check this is to look at the console logs from the Dino system or drag the model into a GLB viewer that you can find online and inspect the animation list. Remember that arrays are zero-based, so index 0 is the first animation. Now we add the private method requestDinoAnimation. This method receives the animation index as a number. Inside it, we get the first dino entity from the dino query. Again, this is fine for this tutorial because we only have one dino. If no dino exists, we log a warning and a return. If we have a dino, we set the request animation index to the animation index from the button. Then we increment animation request ID. This is the handoff between the UI system and the animation system. The UI system doesn't directly play the animation. It only writes a request onto the component. The Dino system sees that request and plays the animation in its own update loop. That is a nice ECS pattern. One system handles UI, another system handles animation, and the component is the shared data between them. Now we go back into our index.ts and wire everything together. At the top, we import create dino entity and dino system from dino.ts. We also import create custom panel entity and custom UI panel from custom-UI-panel.ts. Inside of our world.create block, we keep the camera setup. Then we register the systems by typing world.registerSystem, put our custom UI panel in here, and doing another .registerSystem with the Dino system. After that, we create the entities using create Dino entity and putting the world into the brackets, and the create custom panel entity, also putting the world into the brackets. Now, there's one final thing that we need to fix here in the custom UI panel, and this is putting a slash in front of the UI because otherwise the path is not being correctly recognized. For us, it is very important to register the systems first because the systems set up the queries and the subscriptions. Then we create the Dino and panel entities, making sure these subscriptions can react immediately. There are also other ways to structure this, but let's keep it simple for this tutorial. If we now run our app, we should see the dinosaur in the scene, and we should see the UI panel with the 3 buttons. When we click the buttons, the UI system updates the Dino component and the Dino system plays the matching animation. Finally, if you want to test this on a headset, use the local network URL that the Device prints in the terminal. Your computer and headset need to be on the same Wi-Fi network. Open that URL on the headset, enter the XR session, and you should be able to see the Dino and interact with the panel there as well. Alright, so that's it for this tutorial. Let me know what you think in the comments below, but as always, thanks a lot for watching and see you next time.